Thank you. There is a skiff off of the House floor to provide additional information to members that I'm not able to present here. This amendment is to correct a technical issue that was found by the FISA court with respect to critical intelligence and a technological issue in which there was a gap. Again, 702 is about collecting data and information on foreigners abroad. You have to be both. You have to be a foreigner and you have to be abroad. You can't be a foreigner in the United States and you can't be an American abroad. Foreigners abroad. So there have been people who've been saying on this amendment that this is about collecting at your local Starbucks, this is about collecting at your local McDonald's. It is not. It is about foreigners abroad. And I just want to end with this. With respect to the Biggs Jayapal amendment, this important surveillance tool of foreigners abroad is limited to just foreigners abroad and individuals who are in the United States who are being recruited by terrorist groups and organizations, and the Communist Chinese parties communicate with them, and their communications end up in the inboxes of the Communist Chinese Party and Hezbollah and Hamas and Al-Qaeda. If we're reading the inbox of Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, and Hamas and the Chinese Communist Party, and there's an email in there from somebody located in the United States because they're being recruited either to do espionage or because of being recruited for terrorism, you want your government to read that. Now, our constitutional protections, which we dearly uphold here and everybody is committed to, is that no American shall have their inbox, their outbox, their electronic communications, their data spied on by their government. Our constitutional protections require that there be a warrant, and no one should stand in this well and pretend that they do not. Constitutional protections for American communications within their data. But if you're a person located in the United States and you are communicating with Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and the Chinese Communist Party, in this limited group of people that we collect under 702, that can pose a threat to this country. And this amendment, if it passes, the Biggs Jayapal amendment passes, we will go dark. We will no longer see solicitations from the Communist Chinese Party to students in the United States to go and spy for them. We will no longer see Al-Qaeda recruiting people in the United States to undertake terrorist attacks. We will no longer see people who are sympathetic with Hamas, who contact Hamas and say, how can I perpetrate a terrorist attack in the United States? It is imperative that the Biggs Jayapal amendment fail, and that this underlying bill, which punishes the FBI but protects the American people, pass. I urge passage of this bill and a no vote on the Biggs Jayapal amendment. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona seek recognition?
Rise to claim time in opposition to the amendment.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Like all the amendments offered by HPSI, this amendment drastically expands the scope of FISA. Drastically. This amendment will actually change the definition of electronic communication service provider to require a whole new class of businesses and other entities to assist in FISA Section 702 surveillance. So, when the amendment first came out a month and a half ago, it caused a massive commotion, as you can imagine. One of the FISA amici did something highly unusual. He went public with a warning. He confirmed that the amendment originally was exactly as broad as it looked, and that it could force hotels, libraries, coffee shops to serve as surrogate spies. Because, of course, customers in those establishments might well be engaging in international communications which would transit over the Wi-Fi equipment in those locations. That was the original. So, the amendment sponsors, they threw in an exemption for hotels, libraries, and coffee shops and a handful of other establishments. But that hardly solves the problem because the vast majority of U.S. businesses are not exempted. So the amendment would still apply to grocery stores, department stores, hardware stores, barber shops, laundromats, fitness centers, the nail salon. Perhaps most worrisome of all, it would apply to business landlords who rent out office space and provide Wi-Fi for their building. That would include the offices that many of us in this room go to when we're back in our districts, as well as the offices of tens of millions of Americans across the country. Offices for lawyers, journalists, nonprofits, and others. That's how expansive this amendment is. That's why we should defeat this amendment. Now, I've enjoyed it, all the attention the Biggs, Jayapal, Jordan, Nadler, Davidson, Lofgren amendment has received. It's been flattering that on every other amendment and the underlying bill, we don't talk about any of that other stuff, we talk about warrant. And that gets to the reality of the situation. The intelligence community wants control. They want to continue to have control without any checks. The Biggs Amendment does not require a warrant for the government to surveil foreigners in foreign countries or to incidentally collect the communication of Americans under Section 702. Let me repeat that to you. The amendment does not require a warrant for the government to surveil foreigners in foreign countries, nor does it require a warrant for incidentally collected the communications of Americans under Section 702. It just doesn't. But that's what you've heard. Instead, it requires that the federal government and the spying surveillance apparatus get a warrant if they want to read an American's communications or query them in the 702 database. That's what the essence of this is. They don't want to have to get a warrant. They're okay with getting a warrant under Title I of FISA, but not under 702 for some reason. Odd. Very odd. And I'll tell you what else. Not only do they not want to get a warrant, they want to expand the database and the scope of the Americans that they can scoop up in that database to include, in this particular amendment, virtually every retail outlet in the country, virtually every commercial enterprise in the country, virtually every commercial property in this country. But by golly, we don't want to have a warrant if we're going to look into U.S. persons' information. Don't want to do that. After all, that might cause them to actually develop and investigate further. Let me tell you something. This underlying bill loses its quality if you don't pass the Biggs Amendment on the Warren Amendment. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Oh, I did.
Question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Ohio. Those in favor say aye.